Okay, well, up next, we're going to review the other requirements of the school meals program. A quick review of these, as some of them may or may not, pertain directly to the bookkeeper, but just good information to know about the school meals program. So the first one is the paid lunch equity tool. The paid lunch equity tool, or the PLE, is designated to determine the paid student lunch price an SFA needs to charge. It was released by USDA in April of this year. And normally all SFAs are required to complete the tool annually, print it or save it, and keep it on file at the school. I will say this is a piece of documentation that does sometimes go missing. So, um, you know, save it in a place or keep it in a file so that it's easy for someone to find, should a new person have to take over your position. You can find the paid lunch equity tool by going to our website, going to the school meals program, forms and resources, and then clicking on paid lunch equity tool PLE. You'll see there's a whole page for PLE, and down under PLE, you can click on the contiguous states PLE tools 2324 to access the Excel file. Next slide. For school year 23-24, PLE exemption was provided in the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2023. Only school food authorities, or SFAs, that had a negative balance in the nonprofit school food service account as of June 30th, 2022, shall be required to establish prices for paid lunches according to the PLE provisions. SFAs with a zero or positive balance in the nonprofit school food service account as of June 30th, 2022 are exempt from the PLE pricing requirements. Next slide. So what does that mean for you? Does that mean that you don't have to complete the PLE tool for your school? Well, no, not necessarily. The NDE does encourage SFAs to complete the tool so they'll have up-to-date paid lunch price information. It helps you keep up with paid lunch price requirements to avoid a significant year-to-year increase in the future. And it provides guidance for SFAs that would like to raise prices and or contribute non-federal funds to the nonprofit school food service account for those paid lunches. It does provide SFAs with flexibility to price their paid lunches at the level they feel is best based on their local needs, but there are some considerations to take into effect. One, that reimbursement rates are at the NSLP rates. Remember, you won't be getting that additional per meal reimbursement like we did last year, as Sean mentioned earlier. Reimbursements will be based on the eligibility of the child, and of course, keep in mind those increasing food and labor costs. Next slide. To meet the paid lunch price requirement, SFAs have the following options, and each of these have their own tab in the PLE tool. So the first option is to raise your paid lunch prices. The maximum required increase does not exceed 10 cents. So the most the PLE tool will ever make you raise your paid lunch prices is 10 cents. Or you can contribute non-federal sources in lieu of raising your paid lunch prices. So you can contribute non-federal funds or general funds if you choose not to raise your prices to be in compliance with the PLE tool. And then the third option is to split the cost. Maybe if you need to raise your prices 10 cents, you choose to raise your prices 5 cents and then contribute non-federal funds for the remaining amount to make up for that other 5 cents. The remaining 5 cents you would need to increase your paid lunch price. The recommended 23-24 weighted average price requirement in the PLE tool this year came out to be $3.56. Next slide. We often get asked, what's the maximum price that can be charged for a reduced price meal? And we did have that question earlier and answered it. The maximum price for a reduced price lunch is 40 cents. The maximum price for a reduced price breakfast is 30 cents. And the maximum price for a reduced price after school snack is 15 cents. Next slide. This slide shows where you can find the information on meal prices and charge policies, which we'll be talking about coming up here. So meal pricing not only includes student meals, but it also includes non-program foods such as a la carte items and adult meals. And schools are also required to have a charge policy in place. The Setting Meal Prices guide has been updated, and it is posted to our website, and it was emailed to you on 7/17 by Katie Parch. And just as a reminder, our recommended meal prices are adult meal prices are breakfast $2.75 for adult breakfast and adult lunches $4.60. Next slide. Since 2017, schools have been required to have a written charge policy in place. The goal of the charge policy is to decrease bad debt, as once debt is considered uncollectible, whenever you determine that to be uncollectible, which is typically at the end of the school year, the non-federal dollars must be transferred into the nonprofit school food service account to cover this expense. Your charge policy must be provided in writing to all households annually. So you can't just post it to the website. It should be sent home in writing, let's say like in the student handbook or something like that as well. You need to make clear that households can apply for meal benefits at any time during the school year. And if a student has money in hand for the day's meal, they cannot be denied a meal. So even if they have, a debt of $100 or something like that, if they come to you that day at lunch and they have cash or money to put in their account for their lunch for that day, they cannot be denied a meal no matter what your charge policy says. It is the SFA's decision to allow meal charges. And in your handout packet, there is a guide for developing and updating your policy. It's a great time to look at your charge policy now. A couple years ago, families were able to receive meals for free, and now we're back to free, paid, and reduced. So schools are having to use their charge policies more frequently now, and so now is a great time to review it and make sure it is up to date and reflects your current practices. Next slide. The next slide talks about non-program foods or a la carte items. The definition of a non-program food is any non-reimbursable food or beverage purchased using funds from the nonprofit food service account. This includes the sale of second entrees, milk, snacks, and adult meals. And prices charged must be set high enough to recover food costs. You cannot lose money on these items. And you need to keep the calculations for how you came up with these prices on file. So the food service program cannot financially support the sale of non-program food items and meals. In your handout packet, there is an example of a non-program foods form that you can use to help you in determining your a la carte prices. Slide one, next slide. There is also a requirement for on-site reviews. These need to be completed by SFAs with more than one feeding site. They should be completed by either the authorized representative or the bookkeeper. You must conduct one review for all sites serving lunch and 50% of the sites serving breakfast. These reviews need to be completed by February 1st, 2024, and can be conducted any time up to that date. So the earlier, the better, but at the latest by February 1st. And then you maintain the record of this on-site review on-site. You don't need to submit it to nutrition service unless requested, but we will ask to see it during an administrative review. To find the form for the on-site review, you can go under Forms and Resources. It's under Attachments A through L, and it's labeled Attachment I, On-Site Review Summary. It's also included as a hard copy in your handout packet. Professional standards for school nutrition professionals requires a minimum number of annual continuing education training hours for school nutrition program directors and staff each year. This is required for all food service staff. So if you're someone who wears 2 hats, you're the bookkeeper and the food service director, this information definitely pertains to you. There's not a set minimum number of training hours for bookkeepers. However, it is expected that you'll get some training relevant to your position each year. And there is a training certificate at the beginning of your handout packet for this webinar. So after this webinar, make sure you complete your certificate and keep it on file. We've also included the NDE Professional Standards handout in your packet, which lists a variety of training resources, including those available on our webpage, as well as training tracker logs. And also just wanted to mention there are minimum USDA hiring standards for nutrition program directors. So on this slide, we can see a snip of the USDA handout for those hiring standards. And SFAs must hire staff that meet these standards and supply documentation upon request. So you may be involved in filing this documentation. Next slide. Up next, we just wanted to go over Nebraska's competitive food policy. So competitive foods are foods sold at school during meal times, and the nonprofit food service account does not receive the proceeds from those sales. So in other words, these foods are sold in competition with the school meals program. The Nebraska Competitive Food Policy is designed to ensure that healthy foods or meals for children are provided during the school day. This policy defines when foods can be sold. So competitive food sales are prohibited from a half hour before meal service until a half hour after meal service. This applies to both breakfast and lunch. So let's say your school vending machine is managed by the student council. It must be turned off during those times if the proceeds aren't going to the school lunch account. Reimbursement can be withheld from schools in violation of this policy. Next slide. So the competitive foods policy was when foods could be sold. Smart snacks in schools are regulations that specify what foods or beverages can be sold during the school day. The school day is defined as midnight the night before until 30 minutes after the end of the school day. And school campus is considered all property under the jurisdiction of the school that are accessible to students during the day. So for example, that student council vending machine, if they want it turned on a half hour after breakfast and lunch so they can sell items during the day, those items would still need to meet those smart snack standards. You can find the smart snack handouts on our website. There's a smart snacks decision chart, as well as a smart snacks beverage guide. Next slide. And finally, the school wellness policy. Every SFA is required to have a school wellness policy and a school wellness committee that meets throughout the school year to assess and report progress in meeting goals. Goals must be included as part of the policy. Once again, you can find information on the wellness policy on our website by clicking on wellness policy in the National School Lunch Forms and Resources section. Again, this might not be something, maybe you're not a member of the committee, but maybe you're involved in posting the wellness policy on the website. So just good to be familiar with what the wellness policy is. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Allie to finish up the last few slides.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, on to civil rights. We did discuss this a little bit earlier, but I just have a few more things to add here. It's another important topic for school food authorities. The Civil Rights Summary document is in your handout packet. It's also the first link in the list of links shown on the Nutrition Services Civil Rights page seen here on the screen. School food authorities are required to display the "And Justice for All" poster in a location visible to students, such as in the service or dining area. We talked a little bit earlier too that there was some recent change to the wording. So because of this, Nutrition Services will be notifying you when the new "And Justice for All" posters will be available. But in the meantime, leave up your current poster. Annual civil rights training for all staff involved in the school meals program must be conducted annually. Who, when, and what was presented must be documented. Our website has links to civil rights trainings, which we also mentioned before. The last link on this page takes you to the Civil Rights Summary, attachment H1, which was previously discussed. This form is required to be completed by November 15th as part of the verification process. The full discrimination statement must be included in program information, such as that found in the student handbook. Best place is at the end of the section that addresses the school meals program. If school meals information is found on the website, it should also be placed there. So please note on this screen, the full statement is everything contained in that box. The black, I kind of have the parentheses in red, and it goes around the non-discrimination statement, and it's a black outline. The USDA non-discrimination statement is specific to school nutrition program and is a separate statement from the NDE school non-discrimination statement schools must include on their website. So be sure to check your handbooks and websites to ensure you have the most recent version of this statement. You'll want to ensure that any public-facing portion of the software programs have the updated statement displayed. Also, would like to mention on the menus, it can be a single statement that says this institution is an equal opportunity provider. It doesn't have to be the full statement. It can just be that portion. Going to touch just briefly on procurement reviews. Procurement reviews are completed in conjunction with administrative reviews, and the following forms must be included in the procurement process. You also have them as handouts in your packet. Those forms are a code of conduct, a procurement plan. Purchasing documents must also be kept on file for the review, and they must all be in compliance with Buy American provisions. These are all things that you will need to make sure your district has a code of conduct and a procurement plan specific to your district. Again, those are in your packet. You can also find those on our webpage if you need them. Also, on our website under Forms and Resources, you can find contracts for meal service agreements. So this is an annual agreement for schools between two SFAs or between an SFA and a commercial vendor. There's several different types of agreements. The completed agreement must be attached in the school meals application packet for the SFA requiring this service. So these are schools that provide meals to other entities or schools that receive meals from other entities. You must have an agreement in place and uploaded into your application packet. So as you can see on the screen, I've gone to Forms and Resources under the school meals program. The contract meal service agreements are listed there. So depending on what your school situation is, you would select the appropriate agreement and have that filled out by and submitted with your application. And then the USDA Foods program is administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. This is a program that gives the districts entitlement dollars for purchasing domestic agriculture food products in schools and institutions. Your entitlement dollars need to be used annually. If you're new to your district and to the bookkeeper duties, you will want to reach out to Chad Moore or Brian to get a login to this system. We've listed the website at the top. It's cmpweb.org Nebraska login. And then we've also put a snippet at the bottom. Once you get logged in, what their website looks like, and you can see it lists the program years. And you would select this current program year. And then within there, it will give you your entitlement information and your ordering information. Your food service director should also have a login to this. But in a review, you do need to report your entitlement spending and your entitlement dollars. So it's good for a bookkeeper to also have access to this information. This is also included in your handout. And finally, as we wrap up, we are going to review just some record retention. So school meal records, you must retain 3 years plus the current year. These are property of the SFA and must be readily retrievable. So confirm with a software provider. If you do your records online and you're reporting your POS reporting online, make sure that you have a backup. Oftentimes, schools will get a new software program and they don't realize that it doesn't archive. So you need to make sure at the end of each school year that you have saved the archive, or that the software company has provided you with an archive so you have the record retention needed. So currently it's school year 23-24. So you would need this year plus the 3 past years, which would be 22-23, 21-22, and 20-21. Any records older than 2021 can be discarded unless the SFA has a longer record retention policy. If your district has a longer limit on the policy, then that would apply there. And that is all I have. We're on to Q&A.